Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Humble request to everyone, keep your audio and video on mute, other than the speakers, please.
Hi, I'm not having camera on my laptop because it's a spare laptop, so sorry about that.
Shobana, Ms. Geeta and Archana, can we start?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Sure,
okay.
ma'am. Sure.
Okay. Request all others other than the speakers to be on mute. Both your audio and video have to be on mute, please. Okay. Good evening. Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is Saraswati, Secretary General of the Madras Chamber of Commerce, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you all for this Coffee Connect session. We have two eminent speakers, Ms. Geeta Ramurthy and Professor Archana Prasad, MOP Principal, who is going to be in conversation with her. And we have Shobana Ravi, the chairperson of our Women Business Council. The Madras Chamber, as most of you know, is in its 189th year. And this Women Business Council was started at a though we had many women representatives, we had an exclusive Women Business Council in 2021 during COVID. And this is the Coffee Connect session we started during COVID actually. And that helped in a way because we could get people from all around. In fact, someone was asking, there were two questions to me, only whether women are allowed for this program. I said, no, men can join. Probably we may reserve them for 30%. And the other question is whether we will get a Starbucks coffee. I said for now, we will only get the connect. But we are thinking, as I said, since we started during COVID, this had been virtual all along. But probably going forward, we may think at least once in a quarter, a session in person, so that will help us to have more networking among ourselves. So for now, we will go with the virtual program. And thanks for joining once again. Once again, I'm requesting all of you to be on mute. Both your audio and video could be kept on mute. And I invite Shobana Ravi, the chairperson of our Women Business Council, to say a few words and welcome the speakers and others. Shobana.
Thank you, Saraswati. A very, very good afternoon to all of you. And it's indeed my pleasure to welcome each one of you to this Women Leadership Coffee Connect session, which is a signature program of the Women Business Council. I would first and foremost like to welcome Mrs. Geeta Ramurthy, Managing Director, India, KBR India, Dr. Archana Prasad, Principal, MOP, Vaishnav College of Women, Chennai, Mrs. Madhuri, Co-Chair of Women Business Council, Mrs. Saraswati, Secretary General of MCCI, all the members and staff of MCCI, a warm welcome to you. And of course, most importantly, to all the participants. I think a special welcome to all the men who have joined too. We are privileged if you have taken the initiative to join us, because you make things happen along with us. And what we look as the purpose of the Business Council, Women's Business Council, it'll be greatly supported if men join in. So a very warm welcome to all of you. As Saraswati mentioned, Women's Business Council is one of the initiatives of the Chamber to promote gender acceleration and to build an inclusive culture in the business environment. So WBC was inaugurated, as Saraswati mentioned, by Mrs. Malika Srinivasan, Chairman and Managing Director of TAFE, on 13th of March, 2021. And the primary objective has been to enable women to reach the greatest potential through learning and awareness, and to create opportunities for gender equality. So the Women's Business Council is offering a number of new initiatives for the benefit of members, more particularly women which include who require mentoring support on inclusivity training, connecting with thought leaders like what you have today, business clinics, panel discussions on relevant topics. We have organized panel discussion last on inclusive leadership, on challenging times and managing unconscious bias. So our today's program, our Women's Leadership Coffee Connect session, is actually a signature program of WBC, and its primary objective is to connect with women leaders across fields, and learn from their stories, their ideas, their insights as to how they broke the glass ceiling and climbed the ladder of success. Often we think, is it still relevant? You know, women have reached. But if you look at the number of women who have broken the glass ceiling, it's still significantly not very high. So these programs really benefit in terms of giving you inspiring real-time examples that would motivate women to come out of their own shells and aspire for greater achievements in their career and life, and unlocking their hidden potentials. Today we will experience one of the sessions which is with two very prominent women leaders who have made their mark, with Dr. Archana Prasad in conversation with Mrs. Geeta Ramamurthy. I'm sure this session will provide a lot of insights to each one of you in building leadership and also handling challenges that are pretty unique to women. Okay, so let me now take the pleasure of introducing our two guests who are going to be in conversation. And first, let me introduce Geeta Ramamurthy, Managing Director of KBR India. She's a dynamic leader in engineering consulting sector with a strong focus on innovation, growth, and strategic business transformation. What more will you expect in today's context, right? Everywhere you hear about innovation, growth, and strategic business transformation, whether it is India or across the globe. She has held key leadership roles, including Vice President, Digital at MS Atkins India, and Operational Director, leading operations across regions like the UK, Middle East, and Asia Pacific. Coming to her expertise is in P&L management, finance, and operational excellence. She has driven growth and transformation in global markets. Mrs. Geeta Ramamurthy's leadership is marked by fostering client-centric value creation and data-driven decision-making, making her a forward-thinking and influential figure in the industry. A very, very warm welcome, Geeta Ramamurthy, and it's indeed a pleasure for us to have you as a member and also to be the special guest today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Shobna, and the kind of you.
Pleasure. It's our pleasure is entirely ours. Dr. Archana Prasad, Principal, MOP Vaishnav College of Women, Chennai, would lead the conversation with Mrs. Geeta Ramamurthy. Dr. Archana Prasad is very well known in all the circles, and she has 24 years of experience in teaching accounting, finance, and human resource management. A university rank holder with recipient of Sundarman Medal from Ethraj College. her doctoral research at University of Madras was focused on one of the most commonly talked topic today, employability skills. She's been a resource person at international conferences and has served at Board of Studies in several institutions. Dr. Archana Prasad has numerous research publications in UCG, Scopus, and Web of Science journals. She has also received multiple awards, to name a few: Educational Hero Award in 2023, Distinguished Educator Award, RAMPFO 2023, Best Teacher Award at 2023. Welcome, Dr. Archana Prasad. Pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Once again, a very warm welcome to each one of you, and hope all of you enjoy the Women Leadership Coffee Connect session. And I'm sure each one of you will be enriched in listening to this conversation between these two eminent women leaders. Inviting Dr. Archana Prasad to lead the session, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for that generous introduction. Thank you so much. So I must confess that I'm a bit nervous here. In the last 24 years of the various things that I've done as an academic, leading a conversation has been something that I have never done. So thank you, MCCI, for taking that off my list of undone things. I was also wondering how MCCI, the Secretariat, how they chose me to lead this discussion. I was thinking that maybe they thought as a teacher, we are very comfortable asking questions, but who would give up on a chance to interact with a stalwart leader like Ms. Geeta Ramamurthy, finding out so much more? I consider myself to be, a young leader in terms of the experience that I have. So being in conversation with a stalwart like Geeta Ramamurthy, I wouldn't give up on that opportunity. And when I saw the itinerary for today, when I saw Shobhana Ravi ma'am's name there, I thought that was a double icing on the cake. So thank you. We'll get right into this. I'm given to understand, ma'am, we have about an hour for me to lead the conversation, after which we throw the house open for interaction and many more interesting questions, which probably I have not asked. Am I right, ma'am?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, Geeta ma'am. So Geeta ma'am, I'm going to start off with, I know you said don't call me Geeta ma'am, it comes with the territory. Forgive me. Yeah. Geeta, can you tell me, I'm going to ask a question, and at the risk of sounding like I'm stereotyping, I'm still going to ask this. Engineering is a male bastion, right? Do you have any Sudha Murthy kind of story to tell us how you landed in engineering and how you've held fort over the last 20 years in an engineering background?
Thank you so much, Archana. First of all, I want to thank MCCI WBC for this opportunity. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. So, Dr. Archana, again, it's a pleasure to be talking to you, a highly accomplished, leader like yourself. So, coming to this question about, engineering being a highly male-dominated industry, yes, and it continues to be. So, from my side, I probably don't have exactly a kind of story, a Sudha Murthy kind of story, but I must say that the way I came into engineering industry was still, primarily through finance, and finance is my background. Basically, I'm a qualified chartered and CMA, chartered accountant and CMA, and I have had diverse experience in different fields in finance. So when I joined the, W.S. Atkins, the company that was in the engineering industry, and prior to that, I worked in Singapore for a company called CH2M Hill Singapore. I was still in finance, which was the domain that had actually given me an opportunity to break into the corporate sector. And I had worked for a good 15 years in finance. But after I joined, W.S. Atkins, the company gave me an opportunity to move beyond finance. And that's how I was able to go from being a leader of finance to becoming a leader of other areas like, administration, operations, high HSSC, and then business leadership, and eventually, becoming a digital leader. So in that sense, I think the industry was one thing, but also the fact that I was, in some ways fortunate enough to move out of my traditional area of finance to, other areas that really helped me to, get into leadership roles in this industry, which otherwise wouldn't have been possible.
Oh, that's very interesting, ma'am. So then, with your finance background and coming into engineering, Did you face any kind of challenges? Did you face any kind of hurdles? Were you sidelined because, after all, you were a non-engineer? So, can you share
Yes.
some of those stories?
Absolutely, absolutely spot on, Dr. Archana. So, when I was offered the opportunity to lead a large business, which is called transportation in Atkins, essentially this was a team of about 600 plus seasoned engineers, average years of experience ranging from 15 to 20 years, and many over 25, 30 years, highly accomplished engineers. It wasn't easy because, as you rightly pointed out, I hadn't had an experience of, working with an engineering team, and I was completely coming from a different background. So, whilst my leadership skills were well acknowledged and appreciated, and whilst my boss was repeatedly telling me leading a business is not about really applying exactly the qualification that you have acquired in your initial years of education, but it's really about leadership skills. It's really about stakeholder management, and it's also about understanding what works for the business, and it's also about leading your teams with commitment, conviction, and integrity. So there was a lot of obviously I would say motivation from my boss, but also I did a bit of work in terms of speaking to a couple of other leaders who were leading similar businesses. So transportation was one business. There were other businesses like buildings. There were another business called energy and utilities, and these were being led by engineers, so which is like the traditional approach that engineering companies take. And they were telling me, and they happened to be expats, and they were telling me that you have it in you. I mean, you can absolutely lead transportation. You understand the business inside out. So, for example, one of them told me, I'm a mechanical engineer and I don't apply any of my learning to lead the business. Basically, I have to understand what works for the business, what kind of services we provide, which are the markets, which are the clients, and then, what are the challenges and how do we come up with the strategies to overcome those. So, all of this boosted my confidence. And but in terms of hurdles, I must say that when I went in and started to engage with the senior leaders that I mentioned earlier, within transportation, they were skeptical because they said, okay, we know Geeta as an established finance leader, but how is she going to contribute, as a business leader in transportation? That's when I did two things. One is that I actually did a lot of learning. I tried to, get access to documents, data, both within the organization and generally in public domain, to understand what is this engineering domain within transportation all about, what are the skill sets required, what are the kind of differentiators that companies have. So a lot of work went into that. But secondly, I spoke to quite a few of these leaders, understanding the work we do from the company and what kind of skills are there in the team, what are the pain points and things like that. So I think obviously a lot of effort went into acquit myself, to be able to demonstrate that I can lead the team. And initially, I would really be sidelined, like you said, in conversations to say, no, that's probably something you're not familiar with. This is not something you may be aware of. And then I had to say, no, I've heard that. No, I've read that. So yes, I had to fight those small battles. But eventually, I think, the right organization, the right support system was there. And so that's how, with my own conviction and self-belief, that I can actually lead the team and the business, bringing all of that together, I was able to, take up that responsibility sort of successfully.
Lovely. Actually, listening to your story, a couple of things come to my mind as an educational leader. As a nation, we are gearing up to adopt the National Education Policy. And two of these salient features of the National Education Policy is a transdisciplinary approach to education. We've gone past multidisciplinary and we're talking about transdisciplinary. And as I listen to your story, I think it's a perfect case study. And also, what the NEP mandates is that we teach students how to learn,
Mhm.
which is again very well demonstrated in the way you have grown your career. That's wonderful, ma'am. So
Thank you.
if ever I get a chance to write about NEP, I'm going to ask you to share your case study, and we can talk about how learning to learn and transdisciplinary is the order of the day.
That would be my
I read
pleasure.
somewhere, yeah, I read somewhere, ma'am, that the mandate before you, when you took over KBR India as managing director, was to grow both capacity and capabilities while kind of accelerating a growth in India. I want to know how your growth mindset helped you in this mandate, and if you can share something about that.
Absolutely. So that's true, Archana, that, the mandate was not just about growing in terms of numbers, but also maturing the organization and the capabilities of the teams. And personally, yes, I had stepped out of my comfort zone, as I mentioned earlier, and I moved across multiple disciplines. And one of the examples that, I used to share with the teams was that coming from a finance background, having led a large transportation business, I myself started looking at what's next in terms of, what are the skill sets of the future? What should businesses be looking to do? And then digital transformation became a key area. This was like 5 years back, 5, 6 years back. And then I really wanted to equip myself with more, knowledge of that. So I, enrolled for a course, online executive education course, and I did that in MIT Sloan. And it opened my eyes to the possibilities, right? That digital technology, the intersection of technology and business can actually do. And then when I got this opportunity in KBR, obviously I had shared some of these experiences. And when I came on board, it was not really easy at all, because two things, oil and gas is an industry. When I talk about India, the India team predominantly supports sustainable technology solutions, which is to do with energy, oil and gas, and the process technology. We also have another business which is to do with space science research, but we don't do work from India due to the classified nature of work. So coming to oil and gas, you all know it's a traditional industry. It's, a far cry from the IT world that we all see. So most people are stuck to their old ways of working, and they believe that, they know all the answers. I mean, people who have put in 20, 25 years, and the willingness to change is limited. So for us to grow the team, it's not just about bringing in more experienced people, but it's to have the right blend of, young graduates, mid-level career people, who can all bring diverse perspectives and help us to, come up with very smart solutions as we navigate the complex challenges of our clients. So I had to really put in a lot of effort in terms of change management, tell the team that, unless we are prepared to learn from other industries, learn what, for example, information technology is doing, look at ways of innovating, encouraging open ideas, openness in terms of communication, encouraging ideas from the teams, we will just stay where we are. And I kept telling them, talking about the good examples of organizations that have cracked it, and these could be from any industry, you know. And one of the examples I always used to tell them was about DBS Bank, because in one of the case studies that I was, I happened to listen to, I realized that DBS Bank reinvented itself with a lot of digital applications, which, according to their CEO, Piyush, Gupta, I think he said that it's like running around a closed room while trying to change your clothes. So how hard is that, So you still have to keep running. So it's like that. It's not easy, and your business has to run, but you still have to keep evolving and changing. So a lot of coaching, a lot of influencing was required, and there were people that would not really align, or they were trying to resist, and it took time to bring them on board. You have to show results to prove that it works. So I would say that growth mindset essentially helped Dr. Archana to first of all, believe in my own conviction and my views that, change is required and what are the things we need to change. But to take people along, then you have to bring, all of the other skill sets in terms of influencing, coaching, and listening, particularly, to empathize with the challenges they have and why they are worried, right? Because often the question in a transformation is, what's in it there for me? How is it going to help me as a business leader?
Correct. Very nice, ma'am. And since you're talking about taking the team with you, I I want to know how you led a team that is so diverse across geographies. What were some of your best, what has been and what continue to be some of your best diversity practices?
Again, I would say a extremely pertinent question, because I mean, like you said, in today's times, country teams also are in operation. Cross country teams work together. Cross functional teams works together. So diversity is the order of the day. So for me, it's really about recognizing that each individual, I mean, regardless of the region the person represents or comes from, or the function the person represents, everybody has unique skill sets and strengths that they can bring to the table. So recognizing that individual strengths are important, because you can't be a leader who has it all or who knows it all. And I try to keep telling the rest of the leadership team as well, you don't have to be a perfect person. It's just not possible for you to be the perfect person, because if you want to have all the answers, you will never take a decision, you will never be able to implement something. So make sure that you work with cross functional teams and be sensitive to the cultures as well. So when you work with teams across geographies, there are cultural nuances that we have to be aware of. And it's also about establishing the trust, right? And then bonding with the team. So when we were all in the COVID era, most of us had this challenge of having to build those relationships virtually. And we still did that. We still managed to do that successfully. Virtual coffee sessions happened, a lot of team building session happened over, Teams. But post COVID, we have a greater opportunity to do that face to face. So what I try to do is to bring teams together in a workshop environment, have open dialogue. So there's no question which is career limiting. That's what we keep saying. So people are free to voice their views and encouraging them to, express their views without fear of retaliation or fear of favor. That's important, because then people are really able to exploit their potential, or work to their truest potential. So this is one of the things that has worked. And secondly, it's also about collaboration. I mean, we all know that collaboration is the need of the hour, but sometimes people have a tendency to think that everyone has to align with me. I think I have the answer, but it's reminding them often that don't assume that you have all the answers. Don't assume that this is the only answer. Let's hear it from this person, let's hear it from her. So it's like constantly reminding people about the value of diversity, the value of listening to everyone, including everyone in the discussion and solutioning is so important. And people also evolve, they learn through the process. It's just that sometimes lack of experience means that they think don't we just move on, can we just not move on, why do we need to keep asking so many people so many times? But the key is to reiterate, we can always come up with smarter solutions as a team. So that has worked for me, Dr. Archana.
I love the way you said that, when your teams come together and they speak their mind out, no question or no idea can be a career limiting one. That is beautiful. I think we need to give employees, especially young employees, that kind of space. And I think kind of that summarizes the ethos of KBR. I saw on your website that you're a company, and I quote, a company of innovators, creators, and dreamers. I just love that. And who have only one goal, to improve the world. Lovely. But innovation and creativity does bring to the table its own share of risk, right? So
Yeah.
how do you manage that creativity risk trade-off? And some example of where you've taken a calculated risk, or where you've taken a risk and it's paid off very well. Maybe even an example of where the risk did not pay off very well and how you handled it.
Sure. Brilliant question, Dr. Archana. So, absolutely. I mean, taking risks is something that, people often talk about. And then, when you come together in a strategy session, we talk about it. But do we really, walk the talk? So that's a question to ask. Most organizations that have been around for, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, they go through different cycles, and, they sometimes go through a lot of turbulence. And generally, I mean, from my experience, I think there's a lower tendency to take risk, for those kind of companies which have an established marketplace and all of that, and a position in the market. So there is generally a little bit of reluctance and resistance to take risks. So I think, but as you rightly pointed out, you can't innovate unless you take some risks. And for example, we know that Netflix, when it disrupted the market, it didn't have an established business model to fall back on, or to refer to. The founder just realized that okay, something has to be done differently, and believed in the power of disruption and innovation. So like that, innovation and risk sometimes can't necessarily go hand in hand, and you have to have a balance. So from my perspective, I want to share an experience, Archana. So the example that I mentioned, where I moved out from 15 years of working in finance to completely coming out of that domain and going into leading an engineering business, that was really a calculated risk, because I did ask that question. Believe me, it's not like I was extremely bold enough to take it up right away. I asked the question, look, all my experience and accolades are in finance and leading finance. So what if it doesn't work out? What if I don't deliver? I asked that question because I'd heard of someone who had done that for a few years, and I heard that it didn't go well. So my boss said, look, there's no looking back, this is a step forward for you. And to be honest, if you ask about a safety net, we always value people who who are extremely committed and who are really good. But I think you should not be taking it that way. So that was a calculated risk in a way. And I told myself, if I fail, it's okay. Let me learn from it and let me move forward. So from me, it's about courage, conviction, and staying committed to the cause, and really coming out of comfort zone. So I think increasingly we have to promote that sense of taking risks and not having fear of failure, not having a stigma, about not succeeding. And in my case, in terms of, not succeeding, taking risks and not succeeding, not exactly a direct example, but I always used to be given different projects and initiatives, and one of those was to come up with an initiative for business development, and I tried to come up with something using our own internal CRM. I mean, it didn't come out the way I had envisaged, but then it really opened up my mind to different ideas and different approaches. So that way it helped.
Lovely. So I really think resilience has been, resilience and the ability to say that, yes, I may fail, but what is the learning I'm going to take out of it has been, the crux of what you have shared. Working with the younger generation as the principal of a college, that is something that worries me, because I find, not to take a negative point of view, but I find amongst the younger generation that they find it difficult to fail. They find it difficult to accept no's. What has been your experience dealing with the younger generation in your organization, and how do you handle it? I have a selfish motive in asking this question. Do you have some tips for
Absolutely.
me? Do you have some tips
Absolutely.
for me?
Sure. So, yes, Dr. Archana, I think you're very right. So we have people coming from different generations, in our organization as well, and not just in KBR, but I've, dealt with and interacted with a lot of people, young graduates, young engineers, young professionals, and senior ones. So, yes, there is a general tendency to, not take risks because, and I think particularly I'll talk about women also. We all have a tendency to be too perfect, and we want to tick all the boxes. We want to score 12 on 10. We will not raise our hands until we think that we are capable of surpassing the targets. That's a general tendency, again, from what people I've seen and interacted with, and including myself, I've been like that. And I think for the younger generation, I've had a similar situation where what we try to do in KBR is we look at high potentials, and we really want to unlock their potential. So when there are opportunities for initiatives to be led by them, we look at people that can do it, that have the caliber and have the attitude. But this fear of failure, or sort of reluctance to take risk, has come in the way in at times. As in, people have said, yeah, but I don't have this experience. How do you think I can do it? What happens, I have built in all my experience in the past 7-8 years in this, but what if I don't succeed? So even if they are much younger, there is that fear. And I think as senior people, as leaders, what I have tried to do is to give them the confidence and assurance that if it doesn't work out, that's not the end of the world. you know you come and tell me what you want to do. And as leaders, I think the good thing about organizations like KBR and even my earlier organization, Atkins, is that there's a huge support system and value for the individual's capabilities and potential. So giving them that assurance and comfort, you will succeed, but for whatever reason, if you think it's not your cup of tea, maybe you don't fail, but you don't think you're up for it, it's okay. There's nothing cast in stone. I think that way I have been able to encourage people to take that next step, and in most cases they have succeeded. They've actually made it work. So that's what I feel has worked, Dr. Archana, that really providing that assurance, coaching as well, and being there to hold their backs, if something is not working, and then they can come back to you and lean on you. So that, I think, has always helped for the younger lot. Typically they are more fearless, they are very hungry for taking on challenges, but as you said, this slight hesitancy to take risk may sometimes hold them back, and this is what I have done to motivate them and provide them the support they need.
Lovely. I agree with you, ma'am. I think for us as well, running a college, mentoring has worked very well. And in fact, mentoring has paid back in a way that, there is a lot of reverse mentoring that takes place as well. What my teachers can learn from the
Yeah.
students has also been immense. And I'm sure, do you have such experiences of dealing with young people in your industry, especially where it comes to embracing technology?
Yes, and then yeah, I mean, reverse mentoring is also very much in vogue in different industries, and in Atkins particularly, we had that. And for me, again, I'm always somebody who challenges stereotyping. We think that all more experienced people are averse to technology, and the younger ones are more good younger ones are typically good, but you can find exceptions in both cases. And I would always challenge, reverse mentoring doesn't have to be only with familiarity to use Twitter or Instagram or Power BI or stuff like that. It's also about approaches. Old fashioned leadership styles don't work anymore. And the more you keep it open, the more you keep it less hierarchical, I think it's important. And for me, when I had an opportunity to have a reverse mentor, I would only ask him most of the times about this, which is, how do you think leaders can enable younger folks to take on more responsibilities, to lead projects, to lead programs? And what are we lacking? Where are we blocking your progress? Where are we blocking your success? So those kind of conversations I used to have, and some of the feedback that I used to get used to be very eye opening. To say that it's the same thing. In the engineering industry particularly, people who have always been successful in delivering projects in the old way, traditional way, they think even if there are newer tools that other teams are adopting, they say, no, I've been successful in doing it this way. I'll continue to deliver this way. I don't need to use the new tool or the new platform. So, and also when the youngsters go with ideas, they get pushed back saying that, no, I think we don't want to take chances. This works well, let's not touch it. So I think it's that openness to innovation, the openness to hearing ideas, views, including people from the younger generation into the solutioning process, and giving them the opportunity to lead, whether it's projects or whether it's new product development. I think those are important. So reverse mentoring has definitely helped. And I used to play that feedback. It helped in more ways than one, not just for me, because I always believe in the power of inclusion, but it reinforced my belief, and it helped me to cascade that to my colleagues and others to really adopt the right approaches, when dealing with the younger generation.
Lovely. And I think a very pertinent point has come up in the chat box. I see from Saras Bhaskar ma'am. Hello, Saras Bhaskar ma'am. Nice to see you here. And she says that while working with this generational gap, communication plays a very important role. I think it couldn't have been said better. I think we agree with that, both Geeta ma'am and myself, that communication does play a role in dealing with cross-generational workforce. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you, who has been your biggest role model in leadership and why?
Yes. So, so many leaders inspire and motivate me, but one or two people stand out for me. For example, I'll say Arundhati Bhattacharya, simply because after a long innings in banking, and she rose to such a senior level in banking, and after that, to completely move out of that and to go into an organization like Salesforce to become the CEO is not an easy thing to do. And that too, for someone, again, we talked about generations, and there's so much stereotyping. We think that people with 25 years experience, that's done, they can't evolve, they can't contribute. Someone who's defied all such stereotypical thinking, and who has also succeeded brilliantly. So Dr. Arundhati Bhattacharya is definitely one of those leaders. And I'm sure she fought so many battles before getting to this position, right? And she continues to blaze a trail, because Salesforce is really evolving and growing brilliantly. And another leader for me has been actually Kalpana Morparia. So Kalpana Morparia, she was in ICICI before she went on to JP Morgan Chase. And she, again, she completely defied all the norms, and coming from a banking industry to leading a large multinational financial institution, again, not something that one would normally expect, and that too after putting in 25-30 years, because these are unconventional changes, unconventional shifts that people have done. Doing it when you're 15-20 years of experience is okay, it's normal, and I see more of that. But such women, what kind of barriers they broke, ceilings they broke to get to where they are. So that really inspires and motivates me. And therefore you won't get bogged down by the stereotypical comments. For example, I'll tell you, I worked for KBR in Chennai, and I lived in Bangalore for 15 years before moving back to Chennai, my hometown. And in Bangalore I was working for Atkins, and I was happy there. But when the KBR opportunity came, it was to lead the entire India business, and in Atkins, I might have got it much later. So I took this plunge, but it's not the plunge about taking this job, but it's relocating, at that stage. And my family supported me. So again, it's not something one would normally expect. And they would say, okay, few more years and you will just continue here. So for me, it's really about getting inspired by these people. and saying that I don't want to have regrets in life and I want to feel fulfilled at the end of the day. So these are the people that have been my role models.
Lovely. We see quite a few questions coming up in the chat box. I want to know from the MCCI Secretariat, do we do these now as and when, or do we wait till the end? And how would you like me to
The
do
choice
this?
is yours, whichever is comfortable
So I
to
think
both of you.
why don't we do a few questions from the audience? That way, I don't want to run the risk of hogging Geeta ma'am's time entirely by asking only the questions that are in my mind. So I'm going to ask a question from Sudha Ravi to Geeta ma'am, and I think the answer is in her career itself. But nonetheless, I'm going to ask: would Ms. Geeta give such an opportunity to another person to move from finance to engineering, especially into the higher echelons of management?
Absolutely. You know what? People have. Okay, I'll give you an example. We have already given. I won't say I was supported by the operations leader. So one of the finance leaders, there were like basically two senior people in finance, and one of them continuously told me in KBR, this is within the last 1 year, that he wanted to move beyond finance into operations to lead business. And right from the beginning, he was asking me, what can I do to get there? And I gave him some tips and ideas and insights in terms of what he can do, how he can prepare himself. So when we opened a new office in Bangalore a year back, there was an opportunity for somebody to lead that operation. And now the Bangalore office is growing. And so the job description was, published and people advertised, and we encouraged him to advertise. And he actually came through very well in the interview. And so he moved completely from his finance role into a operations business leadership role. He is heading the Bangalore operation. So a senior position, someone who had put in 20 plus years, 25 years, I think, in finance, moved into business leadership. So yes, absolutely. When the opportunity comes up, I have, enabled that, and I will continue to look at those opportunities to provide, opportunities to people who fit the bill, who really, are actually suiting the job requirements. Definitely, we'll make it happen.
The next question is from Nandini Sengupta, and I'm going to add to that question by asking a couple of questions of my own as well. She asks that as a woman CEO in Tamil Nadu, which has a culture of women in organized workforce, as well as women-led plants, what is your leadership mantra? So I'm going to add to that by asking my question itself. Can you give me 3 leadership mantras of your own? Out of which, very specifically, which mantra is for the global audience, and which is for the local audience?
Okay. Quite a nuanced question, but yeah, I mean, the point about Tamil Nadu being quite evolved in terms of the workforce participation and organized workforce is very, very real. And I come across quite a few, very accomplished women leaders here. Talking about leadership mantra, Dr. Archana, I will say what has worked well for me, in the global arena, and also add about the local arena. So in the global context, I think I learned a lot through my, career journey. And 2-3 things really I feel are really important for anyone to become a well-rounded leader. First of all, strong listening skills, because I think in general I find there's a tendency, and this is more, I'm talking about more people who are educated and who work in India and then look at roles outside, or roles even in India at leadership levels. It's a tendency to not listen fully. There's a tendency to start reacting or not even responding, sometimes reactively answering or reactively, interjecting a conversation, which conveys 2 things. One is that you convey a sense of, I know what you're going to say, because the person is still not completed. The second thing is, you're not even waiting for the person to finish. You're always like in a monologue mode. So I think listening skills have to improve in general. And I keep coaching some of the team members to say, we need to cultivate that. Second thing is really, as a leader in the global arena, it's important for us to not hold back, be vocal, speak our mind, but convey it in a manner which is respectful, which is sensitive to the, the feelings or the views of people around the, team. So I think it's about being more communicative, like you mentioned, being more vocal, being more communicative. in a nice way. So building that sort of empathetic communication skills is important. And the third thing is really about learnability, because in today's times, technology changes so fast. I mean, ChatGPT is almost becoming, like the earlier version, and now you're talking about the next gen, GPT 4.0 and newer versions of technology. We have to keep updating our knowledge. We have to have the learnability quotient as far as leadership is concerned, because then you demonstrate two things. You demonstrate that you are conveying to your teams that you're willing to learn. You feel that you have to keep updating your knowledge, which is a good thing. Secondly, you inspire them and motivate them to keep updating their knowledge, to keep learning and making sure that they stay relevant, right? So these are things that have worked well. And of course, communicating and listening is very, very important. Making sure that you take your people along, as a leader, that's extremely important. Always bear in mind that we are not going to succeed as a single person, as an individual, but we succeed as a team. So that mantra, I think, is extremely important for anybody.
Lovely. I particularly liked your respond, not react mantra. I want to share an interesting anecdote here. Early last year, when I took over as principal of MOP Vaishnav College, I met a seasoned senior principal and academician. And I asked her, "Do you have any words of advice for me?" And she said, "I have just two." She said, "Whether you're angry or you're happy, hold it back for 24 hours before you express it to your team. That way you can collect your thoughts and you can come back with the right words to say." And second, she said, offer everyone who comes to your table something to eat or eat and drink, but never eat and drink with them, because it's a pretty sedentary job and you need to be fit as well. So sip water, but give them tea and coffee and cookies to eat. So this is something that I've tried to practice, and I thought it would be interesting to share here. I'm
Sure.
going to read Shripriya's question. A woman's growth to demanding. It's a very, it's sad that we're asking this question today, but I'm sure it's going to resonate with quite a few women here as well as those who are not here. A woman's growth to demanding senior positions often faces resistance from family members due to compromising of her role at home. Women are expected to excel in all her roles. How do women overcome the guilt they end up in not being able to justify their roles? I want to know your take on that, ma'am.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with this view, to be honest. And Shripriya, it's not just unique to you. A lot of us go through this. A lot of us go through this, turmoil in terms of balancing things at the workplace, as well as balancing what's going on in our personal lives. And at every stage of life, we go through this, and I'm no exception. I used to have this feeling of guilt when my son was a baby, and sometimes when he used to fall sick, I still had to go to work, and nobody is telling you in those times. Actually, neither my people at home nor at the workplace, people were actually saying anything about it, but we ourselves start to feel guilty, right? And this is innate in women. We need to somehow, that is one thing we need to do. We need to overcome that guilt. I want to really remind people of what Indra Nooyi said, which is so true. Women can't have it all. Let's be honest about it. And we don't have to be 100% perfect in everything. When she says women can't have it all, 100% being physically available all the time at home and 100% succeeding at work, it's not possible. Because, and why she said that, because we try to do that, right? And I think that's the recognition. It is okay for us to ask for help, ask for support, whether it's at home or in the workplace. And you're right, I mean, not every household necessarily prioritizes the opportunities that women get to rise to senior positions. And that's when really a lot more conversations need to happen. And I think that it's not about just women dealing with it in their individual homes. I think people like some of us who are working together to demystify some of these thinking and trying to break stereotypes, we have to partner with organizations, partner with companies at a broader level to work at a grassroots level. This is what I feel, because you can't completely overcome this problem. You can solve it in some households, but really this thinking that girls are great in studies, but after they finish their primary education or senior education, households think that they have to get married. How do you start challenging this at that level? I think it's important. So for me personally, I think yes, I'm one of the fortunate people where somehow I've been able to convince, and my spouse has been extremely supportive. So it has been relatively easier. But let me tell you, it's not a bed of roses. Because always there will be challenges. If it's not your your spouse, or if it's not something to do with your in-laws, if it's your kids or it's your parents, maybe health issues, whatever it may be. I think we must recognize that we can't have it all. We should ask for support. At that time, what is important for you, please try to prioritize it. But it doesn't mean that because we have these challenges at a personal level, we should kill our ambition. So that's what I would say. We should find ways to strike a via media. And I think we all should rally around each other, reach out for support, reach out for ideas, or some sort of counseling and advice, because I think we still have a long way to go in terms of having so many women, in senior levels really realizing their dreams.
Right. Yes. One, I can only remember Indra Nui's, saying in an interview that when she got her letter as CEO, her mother told her, leave the crown in the garage. And once you're here, you need to worry about where the milk is going to come from. So go and get that milk bottle. So yeah, right. I think we all have those challenges. Yes. Women cannot have it all. I mean, somewhere I think well-being, we forget about our well-being. I think the first thing that we compromise upon is our well-being. While today we talk a lot about emotional and mental well-being, I think physical well-being is something that takes not even the back seat. It goes out, somewhere. It's not even something that's on our agenda. So what has been your strategy for maintaining well-being of the mind, well-being of the heart, and well-being of the body?
Yeah, I mean, couldn't have been better said, Dr. Archana. It's so important, and women tend to deprioritize it. So from my perspective, I think we all are aware, what's important for us. I mean, even if we are, leading an organization or leading a function or whatever it may be, or in the academic area, whatever we may be doing, I think in Tamil they say "Suvar irundadan chitram." Like basically we have to be healthy to be able to accomplish what we are able to do. So for me, I at least from a physical standpoint, there are two things I always remember, which is you are what you eat. I believe in that mantra, and so being mindful of what we eat has, at least from my perspective, has helped me in many ways. Whether it's the parameters or whether it's weight or whatever. So that's first one principle I try to follow. The second thing is small things that help me to keep myself fit, whether it's a bit of yoga or doing a bit of physical activity. So it's not like because when you have a very busy routine, it's not everyone is able to take huge time out, but those small nuggets, time that you get, capsules that you get, if you can do a little bit of physical activity to keep your sort of body in good shape, I think that's important. But yoga helps both the body and mind. For me, it's helped to keep my mind calm as well, so as far as mental wellness goes. So that way yoga has worked well for me. And the third thing is to self reflection has also helped. When there are situations where there is extreme pressure or turmoil, tell yourself what's the worst case situation that's going to happen. Trying to reflect on it and trying to break down the problem into smaller issues has also helped. So mental wellness, again, I think it's within our own hands, and we need to recognize that there are ways of de-stressing, there are ways of taking care of ourselves, and spending time with family, regardless of what you do, regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur or anything. Consciously taking time out to be with your family and dear ones is so important, because all of that adds to your mental wellness.
So then I'm very tempted to ask, what is your time management mantra? If you can do yoga and spend quality time with family and do such a fantastic job at KBR, I'm a bit envious now.
Yeah, Dr. Archana, I mean, I don't have a perfect formula, but I try to balance it out. Most of the days, I draw a line as far as my meetings or calls go. And then of course there may be those exceptional cases when you may have to stretch, but as a rule, draw a line around my work, and I spend like a couple of hours with the family every evening. Okay, so that's generally the case. And as far as I want to share this example. There are times when you have to prioritize, though it's about time management. I'll say about prioritization. There are sometimes situations where I've taken that call. We have every year a global leadership meet of the executive leadership team, which is 7 people ELT across the organization, and they bring the next levels. So that's about 60, 70 people. So in the first year, when the invite came, it coincided with my mother's milestone birthday. And I actually told, both, couple of senior leaders in the organization that please excuse me, this comes once in a lifetime and I have to be with my mother. It was a lot of risk I was taking, but I stood by that. But the good thing is my boss was extremely understanding, and straight away he said, yes, that's important. So again, it depends on how you take it, right? What if I say, oh no, I've been invited, this is only to the top 60 people in the organization, if I don't go, what happens? But I think that's why we ourselves have to reflect and prioritize. And I've applied these kind of techniques to help me manage my time. Again, I'm not perfect, Dr. Archana, but I'm evolving all the time.
I also think organizations are looking at leaders to see these are cues that they get of the kind of value system the leadership themselves possess. So when a leader tells them that, mother's birthday is important, a milestone birthday is important, I think that's the kind of value system she's going to be bringing to the organization as well. So it's
True.
important that we looked at it for that. I'm going to read a question of Nisha Priya Mani. Ma'am, if I may ask, can you share a moment in your professional journey when you truly felt a sense of accomplishment? I would like to know this because, as an aspiring entrepreneur, I need to know when to pause and celebrate rather than trying more every time. That's a
Wow.
wonderful question, I think. That's a wonderful question. I think we are very often, as women, guilty of not pausing and celebrating.
So true, so true. What a thoughtful question, Nisha. I'll tell you again. There's one of those situations where I felt, or incidents where I felt. So you know what, this has been a glass ceiling for me to get to this position of where I am in KBR, and I had been working towards it. I had written articles about it, which I shared with my former organization, and everyone knew I was aspiring for this. So when I was appointed and when it was widely published, globally across everywhere, and my family congratulated it gave me a sense of accomplishment, simply because that was for me a glass ceiling that I was waiting to shatter. It was a long journey. Didn't happen overnight. So I did feel a sense of accomplishment, that and at that moment. And subsequent to that, okay, some of the accolades that came my way, it just boosted my self confidence, and it just made me feel better, whether it is becoming a thought leader, top, thinkers 360 thought leader in APAC, or list 2024 in India, whatever it may be. But again, that reinforced the belief that I'm capable of doing something. But now I think increasingly I'm looking at paying it forward, working with other women. How can I contribute? How can I support? So that, I think, is beginning to give me a true sense of accomplishment.
Lovely. So before the next question in the chat box is also about women leadership, but I don't think we should bore the gentlemen in the house with these women questions. So I'm going to ask you a question and then come back to that question. I want to know something. I was reading about your the portfolio of offerings that KBR has, and I see that in all of your offerings, you're trying to integrate sustainability practices. So, can you share some of your initiatives in the sustainability space?
Sure. Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Archana, so one of our business verticals itself is called Sustainable Technology Solutions. The other one is called Mission Technology Solutions, which is to do with space. So in Sustainable Technology Solutions, KBR essentially is a leader in process technology for ammonia. And if you think about it, ammonia actually is so key for putting food on the table, because it's a key, fertilizer. And without that, food is not going to be, available. KBR actually runs more than 50% of the ammonia plants across the world, actually, across the globe. So we are essentially, our business itself is pivoted on that. Secondly, the whole world is talking about, basically carbon emissions, and then moving towards net zero. So what KBR is doing is that in every technology that we offer, process technology, we are adding the element of carbon capture and an element of, I would say, green energy. So it is something that, our business itself is pivoted on. So which means that our clients get an advantage in terms of being able to mitigate their carbon emission and find ways to sequester their carbon, because you let it out in the atmosphere, it results in greenhouse gas emissions build up, and your eventually your carbon footprint gets worse. So we provide sustainable technology solutions in terms of the technologies, and also we are also a key player in terms of, looking at how we can contribute to the environment. So some of the initiatives at a local level are like One Ocean, which is beach cleaning. Then what we also do is about, working with like-minded organizations. When you talk about sustainability, for me, Dr. Archana, there is also an element of DEI, the diversity, equity, inclusion, because women are excluded and they become, really the victims of sustainability not being maintained. So we also foster that sense of, inclusion. That's part of our sustainability agenda. And last but not the least, we are rated, by various organizations in terms of what our business offerings are. So I just want to mention to you, 33% of our revenue, which is a very large portion, $3 billion or so dollars in terms of KBR's revenue, is directly coming from sustainable solutions, meaning sustainability services.
Lovely, lovely, ma'am. And we'll go to the question by Sudha Ravi. People, not just men, but sometimes women as well, invariably tag women in the top positions as aggressive and pushy, quote unquote, although they are assertive. There is a very thin line between this. Have you faced this in your work? Also, your view of the. Okay, we'll finish this question first and then we'll go to the
Sure.
next one.
Sure. And it's very true. What you've mentioned, Sudha, is very true. I mean, I've seen with women, other women also, who have been branded as aggressive and who've had, difficulties in managing their teams and working with others. But also, personally, there are subtle references when you want to, get things done, you want to deliver, and sometimes the decisions you take, it's easy to be, say, branded as aggressive or maybe, authoritative, for example. And that's because I think there's an expectation that women have to behave in a particular way, right? And then they always are, kind of, what should I say? They will be more sort of soft in their approach, and women will not actually push for action and things like that. There's an expectation, there's a stereotypical thinking. So that is the reason this comes. And for me also, I've faced this indirectly, not directly. And what I've tried to do is to articulate why I'm doing certain things, and also try to draw this parallel to say that, if the same decision was to be taken by a man, would people react the same way? Or is it just because you expect me as a woman to do things in a certain way, but I am trying to get things done, in a very business oriented way, where I'm saying, let's be clear, let's get this done, and I'm assertive. Does that mean that, you're branding me as aggressive? So redefining what are the behaviors of female leader versus male leader. So I think that's important, right? It's not like it has to be completely either or. You can have a nice blend. So that's what I've tried to propagate.
Also, I think establishing that the trade-off between benevolent leadership and authoritative leadership is a gender-neutral problem. I think male leaders as well as women leaders, most leaders go through that trade-off.
True. True.
How kind is too kind and how strict is too strict.
Very true. Very true. Well said.
So I think that is not. I don't think it's gender specific, though it might be pitched that way.
Yeah.
The next question is, what is your view on the importance of networking, especially since in most companies you find the women and the men in separate groups? That is one question. I'm going to add to that. Networking is also a very time-taking thing, So with women in multiple roles, right? Being a mother, being a wife, being a daughter, being, an employee, being a leader, sometimes you're not able to find that time for networking.
Mm-hmm.
But networking is very important. You have some tips?
Yes. So, in the past, I was also not doing a great job in terms of networking. And I realized that networking can be done in two ways, Dr. Archana. One is physical networking, which, obviously means that you take time out, you be part of forums, you participate in conferences, you meet leaders. So that's physical, and then your teams also, right? I mean, senior leaders. But virtual is also an option, and then I realized that can be equally powerful as well. I mean, sometimes you don't have to say that, okay, I'm not able to go to that place, so I don't think I can join, or I don't think we can have those opportunities to network. We have to find smart ways to network through virtual means as well. The second thing is this question about women and men in separate groups that has been asked. And to address that, I think the key point is inclusivity, and trying to have gender neutral networking opportunities. And I think increasingly organizations are waking up to that reality, and not just organizations as in companies, but anywhere, any forum, even this forum, I think we invited men also to participate and join. So, everywhere, I think that lines are blurring in terms of including everybody. But I do believe, I completely agree with you, Dr. Archana, that just trying to do work and then expecting a lot of marvel to happen is not going to happen. As in, one of my earliest bosses told me that you're excellent, but you hide your light under a bushel. So you don't come out and you don't interact and network. So we have to do some of it consciously. And finding time is not always easy, but you pick and choose the ones that you think will give you the most value. It's the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, right? So I think that's the way I have tried to deal with it. And generally, it works.
So I think today's Coffee Connect session will stand testimony to that kind of virtual networking where the lines between genders are completely blurred. So yeah, kudos to MCCI for that. I'm Kavya from TAFE. As women, we play very different roles and we wear different hats at the same time. But we never appreciate ourselves for what we do, and many of our efforts go unnoticed sometimes. Geeta ma'am, I want to know, I want to know if you have appreciated yourself and keep moving forward in your challenging times rather than expecting others to recognize or appreciate your work. So basically, where do you look for gratification for?
Such a profound question, I must say, Kavya. And yes, as human beings, we all love the recognition, we all love the appreciation that comes our way, and it gives us some validation sometimes. But I've realized over the years that don't wait for validation. You feel convinced, you feel that you're doing something good, you feel that you have accomplished something. Appreciate yourself, celebrate, and keep moving on. So I've learned to deal with that, because you're so right, Kavya, because when you do so many things, you do look for that pat on the back, or that line of appreciation. But I've realized now that I feel good about what I've done. I don't have to wait for someone to write a mail or drop a message. I feel good about it, and it enhances my own self-confidence, my own conviction about what I can do. So yes, I have done that, and I continue to do that. You are very right, and I totally agree with that.
Again, a question from where I stand, ma'am. What are organizations today looking for in fresh recruits? Typically, what do you look for? As you head KBR, when you're hiring someone, what are you looking for in fresh recruits? And therefore, what can academics like me do to prepare them for the workforce?
Brilliant question, and on point, Dr. Archana. What we look for in KBR from the fresh recruits is, see, everybody who typically applies for these positions or tries to get an opportunity to work with KBR, they come with more or less similar academic background, similar marks, and there'll be quite a few numbers of people that come in. But I think the attributes that we look for is the spark in terms of not having fear of communicating, being able to express well. One is communicating clearly, and that is important, because when you work for a global organization, you need to be able to communicate. So communication, not having fear of opening up and speaking or sharing a viewpoint. Thirdly, what the candidate has done outside of the academic area. For example, apart from doing a course, is there any volunteering activity, or is there any project or internship the person has done? Because that shows, in a way, the character of the person, or the interest, or the drive the person has. So those extras definitely add. And last but not the least, giving them hypothetical situations to see how they will handle it and their responses to that. So not everything is from the textbook. It's also about your mental, frame of mind and things like that. So, so those are the things definitely. And in some cases, people come with already, they would be running initiatives. They'll be doing something using new technologies. So it's those standout features, I think, and the attributes, which is, going beyond your academia, stepping out of comfort zone in terms of trying something new. So those are the things, Dr. Archana, that will add. And for future workforce, I definitely feel that, this creative thinking skills are important. Asking the why, where, how, when, and what. And then the second thing is really about continuous learning. I mean, not stopping with the initial qualifications, but continuous learning and willing to experiment, being willing to innovate and not having fear of failure. These are going to be important. And that I would say, because a lot of people ask me the question in the era of AI, what will happen and all that. I think certain attributes of humans can never be completely, artificially intelligenced, if you like. So, that's our decision making, our critical thinking, and being able to make, I would say, draw a judgment based on the data that you're given, and ability to keep equipping yourself with, newer information. And last but not the least, it's our emotional intelligence. I think we have to build that, because the more you work just with humans, our youngsters also will probably not be able to fully appreciate, how to work emotionally with people. So that we have to make sure that they don't lose that ability.
Lovely. I think the time given to me is drawing to a close, but I thought we'll make it fun. The last 1 minute or 2 minutes, we'll make it fun. And what I thought I would do is, we would do rapid fire, if that's
Mhm.
okay with you.
Yes.
So I'm going to talk about some things in leadership, and can you tell me one word that comes to your mind when I say that?
Okay.
Yeah. Breaking barriers.
Boldness,
Lovely. Championing diversity.
passion,
Mentoring the next generation.
responsibility,
Role model leadership.
believing in it,
Managing failures.
resilience,
Innovation.
um, undeniable,
Taking risks.
what shall I say? Do it.
Okay. Navigating change.
Eternal.
Right. Advice for other women leaders.
Go for it.
Work-life balance.
Learn to live with it.
Geeta Ramamurthy.
Truth.
Lovely. Lovely, ma'am. It's been such an honor, such a pleasure, and I hope I've lived up to the expectations of the mandate before me.
It's
I
been
hand it
wonderful
over to
speaking to you, Dr. Archana. I must say this. What a brilliant, series of questions and conversation. I'll truly cherish this for a very long time. Thank you.
So will I. So will I. You don't often get to be, you don't often get a ringside perspective of such a wonderful leader. So I'm grateful to the MCCI Secretariat. I'm going to hand back proceedings to them, and lovely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you both, Geeta and Dr. Archana. I don't know whom should I praise more. You have done brilliant job equally. Lot of learning, lot of takeaways, and the rapid fire round was excellent. And any few more questions? Otherwise, we will go to the vote of thanks. I'm seeing Dr. Ravi. You have any point to make? He is one of our governing council members.
And Dr. B. Ravi is my mentor and teacher as well. Pranam, sir.
So then now
Wonderful.
time for him to ask
Ashirvadam.
you a question.
First, let me congratulate Madam Geeta for the excellent manner in which she has responded to all the issues raised by the
Thank you.
principal Archana. But I have just 2 points, because normally I never go without asking a question. So one is with reference to the risk always give birth to opportunities. Opportunities always creates risk. So do you mean that risk and opportunities go hand in hand? That is point one. Second, if you see the women folk especially, barring few exceptions, most of them go for employment for the sake of shouldering some responsibility other in the family, either probably losing her husband at the early stage or so many other things, or have some family problems or anything like that. For those women, how do you expect them, or what you will tell them to lure them to take the risk to change over or to get into new opportunities? Probably two things I thought I can take your views.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Ravi. Brilliant questions, and thank you for your kind words. So, yes, I mean, your first question, risk and opportunity, do they always go hand in hand? We always talk of these two, together. What's the opportunity and what's the risk? But it's not, I think it's not necessary that always, there will always be a risk associated with an opportunity. It's how we view it. That's my view. When I came across, for example, personal experience, when I came across this opportunity, rather than risk, I thought, what could be the issues that I will have to navigate, if I have to take the opportunity. And then you start to deal with one of each of those and see, okay, what are the measures to address those? So I think in some cases, the risks are there, but then overall, I think it's important for us to analyze whether the upside, associated with the opportunity, it has more value, it makes more sense for us to take that opportunity compared to the downside or the negatives or the challenges that comes from any risk or, downside associated with that. That's the view that I have taken, so far. And most importantly, I think, so without taking risks, there's no learning. Of course, it depends on the kind of risk we are taking. I mean, logical risks I'm talking about, not like jumping off from a, high-story building or something like that, but something logical risks in our careers. And I think without taking risks, we might regret at a later point because we will think there could be missed opportunities. So in general, I think we should encourage taking risks where there is a calculated risk, where there is an understanding of why we are taking that risk, what sort of opportunities that will open the doors for. So that's the first part, sir. And the second part, you talked about, women in certain situations, and that's so true. I have come across some of them in my own experience, and it's not always easy, sir, for us to encourage them to, take risks and, move into completely new areas or new companies. But I think most of the times I feel that, the burden of having to maybe run a family or having to support the family would be so heavy that these people are always, encouraged, or they are always driven to stay in their comfort zone. We cannot expect them to take that risk with just by, talking about this or writing about this, some articles or talking in webinars. I think that's why I said earlier, I feel that we all need to be committed as MCCI, the brilliant work, the forum is doing, and whatever CII and other such organizations are doing. We have to reach out to women in different strata and, partner with organizations to really do two things. One is to really show them the opportunities and show them that, increasingly we are not going to stigmatize people, or we are not going to stop the opportunities for people, who may not necessarily have the exact experience or the exact, sort of educational qualifications. One is that we have to unlock opportunities, we have to communicate that. And secondly, we have to sensitize our own workforce that India, if you talk about the opportunity for us and the vision for us to become, this large economy, world superpower, it cannot happen without unlocking the potential that women have. So for us to collectively achieve this, we will help our families, we will help our, our companies, our businesses, but we will be helping our nation also. So I think there is a bigger purpose here we need to talk about. So that's my view, sir. In small ways, I try to do it. I mean, one of our employees, very new employees, unfortunately died in an accident. And then the wife was qualified. I mean, actually a graduate. And we really met with her and saw if, we can provide an opportunity for her to work. It was extremely welcomed by her. She was appreciating because it supported her children's education. So I think we have to do a lot more to unlock. That's no easy answer. But I think like-minded people have to commit to that cause.
Thank you, madam. Very kind of you. And I will be failing my duty if I don't appreciate Dr. Archana. Brilliant manner in which you have moderated the whole show, and especially the rapid fire round. Brilliant. So, the Tamil சொல்ற மாதிரி இன்ற பொழுதில் பெரிதுபக்கும் தன்மகனை சான்றோன் என கேட்ட தாய்ங்கிற மாதிரி, I am really very happy as a teacher. Thank you very much. Keep it up.
It's the takeaway we get from OTT and all, and the influx of media into our lives, rapid fire.
Thank you. Yeah, can we, if there are no further questions, can I invite Ms. Madhuri Guruswamy, the co-chair, to say a few concluding words and thank everyone here.
Thank you all. I'm sure it's a wonderful session for all of you all. I'm just reminded of a quote. It says, behind every successful woman, there is a tribe of other successful women who have her back. I'm reminded of this quote when I'm listening to this session here itself. And one of the aim of the MCCI WBC is to achieve this by ensuring that there's an upsurge in women entrepreneurs and also boost the participation of women in lead business roles and top management. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of our chairperson, Ms. Shobana, and other WBC members, it's my absolute pleasure to propose a vote of thanks after this enthralling session I can call in on a Friday evening. I was just going through some data and I found that in a LinkedIn and Quantum Hub report highlighting gender disparities in corporate leadership in India, it shared that very few new female leadership hires increased from 18.8% in 2016 to 23.2% in yearly 2024. They peaked as at 25.2% in 2021, which was during the peak COVID period, which didn't stop the women from going up the ladder, but it has to continue. Now, this Coffee Connect session where Ms. Geeta shared her role in different sectors, going from finance to engineering to leading a transportation business. Usually people would say that they do the engineering and then they go to do law or go and do photography or go and do a stand-up comedy or something. Here we have somebody who's come into engineering and also reached the pinnacle here. This session, if you have noticed, she cited a lot of examples. There's a lot of takeaway. Willingness to change, be ready for digital transformation, be prepared to learn from other industries, culture sensitivity, bonding with the team, and the need to take risk and get into innovation. You should have the courage to fail and learn from it, and also to ways to handle the next generation, the Gen Zs, the millennials, the Gen Alpha, whatever they would want to call themselves, and also to draw inspiration from different quarters, focus on mental, physical, and emotional well-being and importance of networking. That is the most important thing I would say. One of the things that my takeaway is that it's a leadership mantras that she actually said, the strong listening skills, being vocal, and at the same time be responsible and sensible, with empathetic communications and the learnability to keep learning. I guess irrespective of whether leaders or not, I think as professionals or working people or in the industry, all of us should follow this. It will automatically take us to the leadership or wherever we would like to go into. Dr. Archana, I think Mr. Ravi and Ms. Saraswati have said it was like a nice session that, you're like the director who were directing all of us to do what needs to be done. So the program's success, I would actually attribute it to you, but you also gave your views in terms of, holding on your thoughts, especially on anger for 24 hours and be hospitable to someone who's visiting you, and, navigating the session between the questions you have with the questions in the chat box, with rapid fire questions, you had us captivating the entire session. So thank you very much for this wonderful session that we've had. WBC has been and will always be a team effort, and special thanks to MCCI and its team, especially Ms. Saraswati, Ms. Madhu, Ms. Vasu, Ms. Jaya for working tirelessly to make this event a great success. Now, saving the best for the last, we had at least 100 and odd participants in this meeting. Some of them in the meeting itself and some of them watching live in the YouTube. We thank you all for participating in this. And, I hope all of you all have a lot of takeaways that I did as well. Wishing you all, I think that's a very long word of thanks. I'll stop here. Wishing you all a wonderful evening and have a great weekend. Advance wishes to all of you for a colorful, bright Diwali from all of us from MCCI and WBC. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, all of you.